People often think that to keep a man, a woman needs to stand out, be irresistibly attractive, or master a series of sophisticated tactics to make him unable to leave. But can love survive on calculation? The truth is, a man doesn't need to be controlled, and in reality, he cannot be controlled. What he needs is to be understood. Understanding doesn't mean excusing the inexcusable, nor does it mean tolerating violations of boundaries. It's about understanding why a man behaves the way he does, why he reacts the way he does when challenged, hurt, or faced with a woman who isn't easily subdued or unconditionally accommodating. Somewhere in a man's soul, there's always a struggle between the instinct to protect and the instinct to be admired, between the desire to love and the fear of being hurt. He may not say it, but it's always there, like an undercurrent flowing beneath his calm exterior, beneath the steadfast demeanor society expects him to uphold. Understanding this is the first step to creating a profound connection, one that cannot be replaced by looks, sweet words, or unconditional indulgence. In classic psychological theories, Carl Jung, one of the greatest names in psychoanalysis, once said, "Man is driven by the unconscious until they recognize it and name it. Otherwise, they will mistake it for fate." Men are the same. They love, but they don't always know why. They desire, but they don't always understand what truly moves them. Love rarely lies in the conscious mind. It's not a checklist of criteria. It doesn't come from perfection. It comes from the cracks. And it's those who can touch those cracks, gently but deeply, who truly become irreplaceable in a man's heart. In this video, we won't talk about how to make a man fall for you, because you don't need to make anyone fall. We also won't discuss strategies to capture a heart, because a heart isn't something to be stolen. We'll talk about how men feel, about the psychological mechanisms that make them attracted, captivated, and stay not because they're held, but because they want to stay. About why some women are passed by while others make men pause and never truly leave, no matter the distance, time, or new relationships that come along. It all begins not with beauty or gentleness, but with a subtle understanding of a man's mind, shaped not just by childhood, but by thousands of years of evolution. To understand a man, you don't need to learn to read minds, nor do you need to become someone else. You just need to take a step back. See him as a human, full of contradictions, but also full of potential. Not someone to lean on, nor someone to fix as a project. Simply a soul. One that has fought battles, been wounded, been forced to be strong, and may not have ever been allowed to be vulnerable. When you understand this, you don't need to do much. Your presence becomes a gentle challenge to his masculine ego and at the same time a safe haven for his weary soul. And if you're wondering, do I need to hurt a man to make him love me more? The answer is no. You don't need to cause pain, but you need to challenge. Not with criticism, but with your full, authentic existence, strong, with boundaries, with depth, and without losing yourself in love. There's something rarely spoken but always present in every man's life, the primal wound. Carl Jung called it the primordial wound, the first and deepest cut in one's being, formed in childhood or even passed down through the collective unconscious. It's not always a clear memory, nor can it always be named, but it exists, like a low, lingering note in the symphony of their life,
Quiet, but ever influential. Every man carries a shadow within, a place he doesn't want anyone to enter. It might be a memory of being compared, humiliated, or forced to become someone he's not. It might be the first time he was rejected, belittled, or simply felt not good enough in the eyes of someone he cherished most, his father, mother, or even himself. This wound doesn't fade with time. It's only hidden, behind strength, success, fleeting pleasures, or even cold silence. But here's the remarkable thing. When a woman is subtle enough to touch that shadow, not to hurt, but to show, I see you. I see both your strength and your wounds. Something miraculous happens within a man. He begins to want to prove himself, not to outdo others, but to be worthy of that gaze. A gaze that doesn't judge, doesn't save, but simply acknowledges him fully, even the parts he avoids. Deep within a man's ego lies a primal need to be good enough in the eyes of the woman he values. Paradoxically, this doesn't come from empty compliments or excessive indulgence. It happens when he feels the need to rise, not because he's forced, but because he wants to. You don't need to push him. You don't need to point out his flaws. Just don't dim your own light to make him comfortable. When you stand there, clear, kind, and subtle, your presence becomes a silent challenge to his ego. This is when their ego is stirred, not by a fatal blow, but by a gentle touch. Like a breeze slipping through a window. Nothing is broken, but it leaves a chill, real and undeniable. When challenged the right way, a man doesn't get angry. He gets drawn in. He's compelled to prove he has worth, that he's worthy, that he can overcome the inner fears he's never voiced. And when you reach that place, the deepest wound in a man's psyche, you don't need to hold him with any tricks. Because when a man embarks on a journey to prove his worth to you, it means he's chosen to stay. No one needs to hold anyone. Because when someone feels seen in their essence, depth, and wounds, they don't leave. However, a word of caution. You are not the healer. You don't need to save him. Your role is to see, with respect, with the light of both intellect and emotion. That's why women with depth, though they may say little, though they don't try to shine, always leave a mark on men, because they see the wound, but aren't afraid. They don't run, nor do they lose themselves in it. They simply stand there, steady, gentle, and clear. A man might be infatuated with you for your looks, charm, or intimacy. But to make him want to surpass himself for you, you must touch a place few can reach, the shadow he hides in silence. And if you've ever been that woman, you'll see you don't need to say much or fight for anything. Your full presence is already a silent question that makes him ask himself every day, am I good enough for her yet? If you've ever loved, waited for a text, or felt you've given too much only to be met with indifference, you know the sinking feeling of unreciprocated effort. But few pause to ask, why does giving so much sometimes go unappreciated? The answer lies in an ancient psychological paradox. What comes too easily is often not valued. By instinct, men are creatures of action. They're wired to conquer. From prehistoric times, men hunted, protected, and claimed territory. Through thousands of years of evolution, that instinct remains intact, though its form has changed. They no longer hunt in forests, but they're still drawn to what requires effort. And so when woman gives too much, too soon, even out of genuine love, it doesn't trigger a man's instinct to conquer. Neuroscience calls this emotional habituation, when the brain stops seeing something as worth pursuing because it's always there, readily available, without demand. It's like a beautiful song. No matter how lovely, if played on repeat, you'll want to change it. Not because the song is bad, but because you no longer have to wait for it. Many women believe, if I'm kinder, give more, or indulge more, he'll love me more. But the truth is, in love, giving doesn't always mean receiving. The issue isn't how much you give, it's whether he still has to strive to keep you. Think of it like a stream. If it flows endlessly, uninterrupted,
People take the water for granted. But if the stream pauses, meanders, or leaves gaps, each time the water appears, it's cherished. A woman who keeps a space for herself, not out of coldness, but because she knows love needs room to breathe, understands this. You don't need to become a tactician in love, but you need to understand your presence must have value. And that value doesn't come from how much you sacrifice, but from the feeling, I can't easily have her, that a man senses. When you're always there, texting first, checking in, catering to his every mood, you're killing the desire he needs to stay motivated in love. Carl Jung once said, "A man's soul only truly grows when faced with what he cannot control." And you know what? A woman with depth, boundaries, and pauses is exactly that uncontrollable force. This doesn't mean pretending to be busy or playing hard to get. It means knowing when to step back, keeping your own life, saying no to what makes you uncomfortable, even if it leaves him momentarily unsettled, because that awakens a man's valor. When he's not sure you'll always be there, he pays more attention. When you don't react as he expects, he gets more curious. And when he feels you're not easily grasped, he reevaluates your place in his heart. Notice this. The women who captivate men aren't always the most perfect or the sweetest. They're the ones who make men adjust themselves to earn their love. And that's the kind of love that lasts. Without needing to hold or bind, it endures. True love doesn't require you to do too much, but to know when to stop, so that man realizes you're not a cheap gift he can pick up anytime. You are a worthy choice, a reward for a man mature enough, brave enough, and understanding enough to rise above his own ego. Carl Jung once said, "We don't become enlightened by imagining light, but by descending and facing the darkness." The darkness, in Jung's psychoanalysis, isn't negative or scary. It's the part of ourselves we hide, deny, or dare not acknowledge. In men, this darkness is often more concealed than in women, because society has taught them to be strong, steady, and the pillar. But everyone has a vulnerable side. Every man has private fears: fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of not being truly loved, fear of one day being seen in their clumsiness or weakness. They don't say it. They laugh it off, dodge, or mask it with coldness. But that darkness is still there, like a room they've never invited anyone into. And you know what? That dark place is where the deepest connection in love is forged. Because only when a man lets you see him truly, unguarded, unarmored, is when you touch his real heart. Not the image he wants you to see, but the authentic person behind all the masks. Women with depth don't rush to probe or rescue a man's emotions. They observe quietly. They don't invade. They don't pry. They wait until the man trusts enough to open that locked door and whisper, "Do you want to come in?" And if you step in with respect, not pity, not sorrow, not trying to change him, you've done what few can: connect with the truest part of a man. But be careful. The darkness isn't yours to clean up. You're not there to heal him. You're there to be present, like a small light in a dim room, not blinding, not disruptive, just enough for him to see himself clearly. Imagine this. A man stands before you like a grand house. The living room is bright, tidy, the first place he brings you. He offers tea, talks animatedly, shares the good things. But deep within that house is a locked room, dusty, old, filled with things he hides. If he's the only one he invites into that room, know that you've reached the part of his soul he shows no one. That's the highest trust. True love isn't about loving each other for the good parts.
It's about loving the ugly, weak, even wounded parts and still staying. And for men, the deepest love doesn't come from moments when you're radiant, but when you understand the pain they hide and don't walk away. Carl Jung called this facing the shadow. When a man feels safe enough for you to see his wounds without shame or feeling diminished, you've become part of his growth. That's the difference between infatuation and bonding. Infatuation comes from beauty, attraction, sweet moments. Bonding comes from walking together through the darkness. And how do you touch that darkness rightly? No advice needed, no reasoning required. Just presence, patient, quiet, sincere. Just a sentence like, "I don't need you to be perfect." Just a look that doesn't flinch when he trembles inside. Just a hand squeeze when he's breaking inside. In those moments, a man's brain releases oxytocin, the strongest bonding hormone in relationships. But it doesn't come from overcare. It comes from non-judgmental emotional connection. And once a man experiences that, being seen fully without needing to play a role, you're no longer just attractive. You become irreplaceable. Every man carries a deep ambition to be a hero in the eyes of the woman he loves. Not because she needs saving, but because she believes he can become something greater than he is now. It sounds strange, but men aren't easily moved by care or flattery. They truly change, truly love, when they meet a woman who looks them in the eye and says, "I see you could be something greater than you are today." Not criticism, not stifling expectations, but unconditional belief in their hidden potential. Remember, a man will forget the woman who tells him to change, but he'll never forget the one who makes him want to change. You don't need to push, just be a mirror, reflecting back the best version of himself. Even if he's not there yet, you believe he can be, and that touches the deepest part of his soul. The paradox of presence, not always being there, but being fully present when you are. A common mistake many women make is being too present, too often, too willing, too accessible. This inadvertently makes a man feel no need to reach, no drive to conquer. A man's love is still influenced by primal instincts. They love through pursuit, exploration, and just enough challenge to spark interest, but not so much as to feel hopeless. So the secret isn't playing games or pretending to be busy, but knowing how to create space for him to crave your presence.
Let your presence be sacred, unique, not easily had. You don't need to always be there, but when you are, be fully there. Not cold, not aloof, just present with a sincere heart, attentive eyes, and energy that makes him feel, when she's here, the world slows down. This selective presence creates a sweet paradox. He sees you as precious because he can't fully possess you, and that makes him want to stay longer. Touching the darkness. Facing fear without trying to fix it. This is the hardest and deepest part, but once you master it, your relationship with a man will transcend ordinary love. When men hurt, they often go silent. When they're scared, they act strong. When they're lost, they pretend to be fine. The natural response for many women is to help with advice, actions, or comfort. But sometimes what a man needs isn't a solution, but someone who quietly sees his wounds and doesn't panic. You don't need to heal them. Just be present without judgment. Acknowledge their fears without trying to erase them. A simple sentence like, "I see this hurts you. I don't have answers, but I'm here if you want to share more," has more power than any psychology lesson. When you don't flee from their darkness, you help them accept themselves. And that's when true love begins. In summary, these 3 secrets aren't techniques or tricks. They're a way of living, a vibration from a woman who knows her worth, understands male psychology, and doesn't lose herself in love. Reflect their potential, so they want to rise. Be present selectively, so your presence is craved. Embrace their darkness to forge a true bond. These may seem small, but they're powerful enough to transform how a man loves. People say love is understanding, but in bonding, there's something even stronger than understanding: reflection. Reflection isn't about saying exactly what they're thinking. It's about being a mirror, clear enough for them to see themselves, both beautiful and fragile, without shame, judgment, or defenses. For men, this is especially rare. Society teaches men to be strong, not to cry, not to be weak. They grow up with an invisible mask, always needing to be okay, capable, steady. But deep inside, everyone has a shadow. Unnamed fears, failures they've never shared, old relationships that left wounds unhealed, questions about themselves they dare not ask aloud. This is the shadow Carl Jung spoke of, the dark part of the soul where unaccepted things reside. You don't need grand gestures to save that shadow, but if you're subtle enough to not shy away when he reveals his wounds, the connection between you will go from surface to roots. Men don't often need advice when they open up. They need the presence of someone calm enough to listen and not panic at what they reveal. Imagine this. He shares that his father abandoned him, making him doubt anyone will stay with him long term. Common response might be, "Oh, poor thing, but I'll never leave you." That's not reflection. It's covering pain with an unrealistic promise. True reflection would be, "I understand why that makes you guarded. I can't change your past, but I'm here to listen if you want to share more." This slow, honest, non-intrusive response creates a space of absolute safety. Something magical happens when you reflect not just their pain, but the strength hidden within it. For example, if he shares that he failed at a startup and still blames himself, you might say, "Others might see failure, but I see someone who dared to risk, believed in what he built, and didn't give up after it all." Hearing this, his brain releases not just oxytocin, the bonding hormone, but also serotonin, the neurotransmitter tied to feeling recognized and respected. This reflection activates the brain's sense of personal worth. And once you're the one who does that for him, you're no longer just a woman. You're the rare one who touched his soul. The key is, reflection doesn't mean accepting all bad behavior. Empathy only has true power when you hold your own values. You don't fix, don't condemn, but don't turn a blind eye if he crosses your boundaries. You might say, "I understand why you reacted that way, but I also need a relationship with safety and mutual respect. I won't stay if that's missing." When you reflect their pain while holding your self-respect, you teach him something invaluable. You can be vulnerable without being destructive. You can be understood, but you also need to grow. And sometimes, that's the start of healing. There are moments when reflecting pain leads to silence, not because there's nothing to say, but because your souls are sitting together. Don't rush to fill that silence with words. Stay still. Look at him. Place your hand gently on his if the moment feels right. In those moments, the bond becomes alive without words. And a man will remember, not because you said something profound, but because you were there when he was no one. Men have wounds, but no one teaches them how to express them. Deep women don't heal. They stay, quietly and strong enough to not be consumed by the other's darkness. Reflection is an art, daring to see the real man and letting him see himself through your gaze. Love doesn't start with perfection, but with the courage to face each other's imperfections together. And if you can do that, you don't just keep a man's heart, you hold the part of his soul he's never dared give to anyone else.
You've stayed with me this far, perhaps because deep down you realize love ultimately isn't about making someone stay, but about being so true to yourself that when they stay, both of you remain whole, free, and without losing your unique light. We've walked through the layers of a man's psychology together, from the primal wound hidden behind a strong facade, to the deep need to be challenged, reflected, inspired, to the truth that men don't love the one who gives the most, but the one who makes them want to be better. And you, the woman listening, can step into love with the deep confidence that you don't need to shrink for someone to love you. You don't need to fill someone to make a relationship whole. You don't need to hold tight to avoid being left. True love doesn't demand you change your essence. It only asks you to be true to yourself and gently firm with what no longer fits. You don't need to memorize tactics to make someone fall for you. You just need to know your worth and be patient enough for the right person to see it. Attraction isn't about appearance or clever conversation. It's about the energy within you, a natural, unforced light. No relationship is perfect from the start. There will be misunderstandings, clashes, moments of weariness. But if both grow, reflect on themselves, and stay patient, that love becomes a spiritual home, where you're not just loved, but grow. Finally, remember this. You don't need to do anything to deserve love. You are worthy simply because you exist, live authentically, and love with a heart full of self-respect. Step into love like a seasoned woman, gentle but not weak, proud but not arrogant, open but never losing yourself, because the man who's worthy won't love you because you tried to be someone else. He loves you because you are you and need no one's permission to shine. Listen again to your own voice, to the truths you've heard today, because in every woman lies a queen waiting to awaken, and perhaps it's time to wake her up. If this video touched you, don't forget to leave a heartfelt comment or share it with a woman you care about, someone who might need to hear this right now. Because true love begins within and spreads from one person to another like the light at dusk, quiet, warm, and never fading.